their feet and in contact, close around the ball on the ground after a tackle. Once the ruck has been formed, players can't use their hands to get the ball, only their feet.
Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. Today we're joined by Scott Madsen, who's the founder and CEO of Cingo Solutions, and Brad Franco, who's the director of sales. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
You bet. So this is the first Meat and Potatoes podcast in the new studio.
It's great. I love it.
Thanks for being a part of it. All right, Scott, tell us about Cingo Solutions. What is it? What do you guys do?
Well, we're a cybersecurity firm. We also specialize in regulatory compliance. Firm started in basically 2005 as a design studio, did web development, became a super saturated space, so we ended up kind of beginning some MSP services. The founders all come from unique backgrounds. One's from finance, had to deal with a lot of regulatory stuff. We have a compliance guy. Also, we have me, who's just spent most of the time in executive teams and in building small businesses, and then we have a tech partner. So when you combine all those, when we started getting in the MSP space, it was still pretty saturated. I mean, even Utah has 10 or 15 different companies, depending on where you are, that offer pretty much the same service. So we kind of saw a focus of targeting people who are being targeted, meaning like financial institutions, pharmaceutical companies, lawyers, accountants, people who have high-value data. If they get hacked, it's a very high-value transaction for them. So we wanted to basically step into the space and try to figure out solutions that would help them not only navigate the day-to-day, but also navigate the regulatory audits when they come in. So we participate in audits regularly. We participate from the IT side, work with executives, have to provide a high level of transparency for what we do, why we do it, and what the value add is there. So we rolled out our security stack in 2016. We just barely rolled out our brand new updated stack, which offers our clients a huge amount of transparency into the day-to-day, what they're facing and how we're deferring and protecting them. We rolled that out, I think, in November. We got through the beta process, and now it's fully rolled out for all clients. So
awesome. So people hear of the big headlines like recently Colonial, gas pipeline, and then JBS, and then any number of others. It seems like weekly. And there's ransomware, cybersecurity in general, and all these other terms and terminology. So the big companies, still happens to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of SMBs across the world,
Yep.
and that's kind of where you guys are focused. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, what we wanted to do is take a very high-level, Fortune 500 solution and bring it down to where software does a lot of the work. It deals with the efficiencies that some of those higher-end companies charge for, and be able to allow smaller SMBs to deal with it. A lot of the big competitors in the space, they specialize in either endpoint security or server security, or they have a specific specialization. For us, we wanted to incorporate all of those specialties into one house, so that instead of communicating or having your CTO, and especially in a smaller business, coordinating with 10 or 15 vendors, they coordinate with one. And we're accountable for everything that happens, and we make sure that the feedback and communication is there.
Got it. All right. So, Brad, as director of sales, you're calling on these companies, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And you're getting a lot of feedback, anecdotal, and I'm sure you guys are compartmentalizing what the responses are as well. But I guess it doesn't matter what industry, right? It's kind of proven recently with all these headlines. But what are some of the reasons people don't think they need this type of service?
I wish I had a good answer for that, but I think it can be boiled down to no one thinks it's going to happen to them, and that is not a good answer, frankly. And unfortunately, I talk to business owners and leadership teams every day who don't want to give me the time of day to really dig into like what they're doing today, whether it's working or not working. But folks have largely taken a head in the sand approach to cybersecurity, and there's a few reasons for that. I think traditionally, cybersecurity has been tucked into the IT department, and really it's the last couple of years that it's starting to be pulled out and viewed separately. You're seeing a lot of folks Some of the companies that are still technically called medium or mid-sized business, they're starting to allocate budget for this stuff, for tools, for talent, for leadership. CISOs and CIOs are becoming more prevalent than ever. But the smaller businesses are still relying on the fact that AWS is secure, or Google Docs is secure, or this software, WhatsApp is encrypted.
Mm-hmm.
And these things are kind of laughable, because that's absolutely true that they do have those levels of security. There are so many different ways to fall victim to a cyber crime, especially if you're a small business and you don't have the resources and you don't have the budget, that you're saying it's not going to happen to me is almost a death sentence in some ways.
Yeah. And so a lot of these attacks are not meant to completely implode the company, correct? Like it's just a light crippling or slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of companies can't do that, correct?
Right. It's a smash and grab. That's what most of it is, especially for the small to mid-sized businesses. They're not really looking for anything specific. They don't, it's not like what it could be if you attack some core industry. They're just looking for a smash and grab. And I think that the problem is in trusting larger providers. We're a SOC 2 certified provider. We have to do that in order to meet the compliance guidelines for some of our clients. But every year we have to update that. So a couple of years ago, AWS actually failed their SOC, and we had to pull everybody out of their cloud and put them into a different competitor cloud, and then AWS got their SOC back the next year. And people don't really realize this. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
SOCs are specifically geared to for data privacy, for the terms of service actually meeting what and the privacy policy. You're actually engaging that and deploying that on a day-over-day basis. And even if you're with a huge company, even if they claim a lot of things, they still can fail their audits, and they still can be up the creek, and they're not going to talk to you about it unless you're a company like us who relies on that. So you don't know what you don't know, essentially.
Yeah. On the operational side of running a startup that's scaling, growing like you guys, so you've got 3 other partners
Mm-hmm.
and diverse backgrounds there.
Mm-hmm.
How did you guys, and how do you currently kind of decide who's going to tackle what role? And then what do you do when there's disagreements on strategy and operations and growth and all of that? How do you guys, as friends and business partners, decide direction?
Well, it's more complicated than friends. We're all brothers, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've been our dad bought and sold businesses our whole lives growing up. We moved around, and that's basically what we did. Moved all over the continental U.S. We've been working together since we were pretty young. We went all and started our careers separately. Came together on Cingo. Everybody kind of has a position that they take where they're the expert, and we have to rely on each other for that. That's the tough thing about partnerships, is you got to trust each other. We talk a lot about how partnerships, especially in small businesses, and what you guys do is phenomenal, because I think you give a lot of feedback and scope to people who are trying to do this and to overcome a lot of the pitfalls that other people deal with. In some ways, your partner's closer to you than your spouse. They can affect everything in your life. They make bad decisions. It doesn't just affect you. It affects your spouse. It affects your kids. And I think that egos have to get checked at the door. Everybody has to really rely on what their strengths and weaknesses are and be brutally honest with each other about that, and willing to take that. Your ego's got to back down and say, yeah, I'm not as good at that as you are. Everybody takes their position. You defer unless there's something that really you object to, but you got to work it out. You got to spend time talking and actually grind it through, which takes a while in the beginning. I think anytime you start a business, if you survive that first 2 years and you don't hate each other, you're probably in a good way. So
Yeah, I didn't know you guys were all brothers, so
Yeah.
that's another layer of complexity, but also there's upside to that.
Oh,
too,
there's
right?
tons. Communication is easy. I can swear at them and they don't get offended. There's good things to it. But
Right, and if anyone's really kind of a butthead, you just don't invite them to Christmas party.
yeah, that's right. That's exactly
Then they
right.
know.
We're slowly pairing them off, so no one's coming but me.
All right, so how have you guys grown the business since kind of that, should we call it a pivot in 2005? What have been some ways that have worked well, and what have been some ways that just didn't work?
Yeah, we pivoted in 2012, and then we really got into the cyber side of it in 16. We've grown mostly from word of mouth. We've got really great clients. Our attrition rate's really low. We try really hard to make sure that we're constantly adapting and adjusting, and that we're competitive in the market, and that we're innovating. But it's things we've done well is focus on product, focus on integrity of the product, and also, other entrepreneurs, people would argue with me about this, but I don't like raising money unless I prove the concept. I want to take all my own risks. I don't want everybody underwriting my risk, me coming into a fancy office every day, and then at the end of it, if it doesn't work out, just shrug my shoulders. So for me, it was really important that we take our own cash, reinvest it, get to the point where we have a proven model and a proven software suite that's deployable, that makes sense. And then after that, go and chase active growth. And so we've taken on, a really good growth rate over the last probably 4 years. We've been on the Utah Top 100 for the Mountain West Capital Network 2 years in a row. And hopefully we'll make it again this year. But now it's less organic and it's more growing towards actively, going out and educating the public. I think Brad's right. Most people, especially in small businesses, part of the business plan is you get your finance dialed in, you get your legal dialed in, you get your leadership dialed in, you get your mentors, you get your providers, your suppliers, everything else. Nobody really thinks about cyber. And for good reason, it hasn't historically been that much of a problem. But at this point, it's absolutely becoming a problem. And so I think if people can take preliminary steps when they're in their startup mode to just at least have a plan for how to deal with this stuff when they can get the budget put together and have the right partnerships. We do a lot of just pro bono work for small businesses that are starting up. I have friends who have started up and they've called and said, hey, I can't afford the service, but I need it. And so we'll just float them for 6 months. And at the end of it, we want to see them succeed. And because of that, they're loyal customers. And so, it's important to us that this whole idea of entrepreneurism doesn't die. And some of those initial costs can be really difficult to stomach. But those are also the moments where if you take a small hit, you're out of the game.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's really benevolent of you guys. And it works out win-win. If you make it and you're loyal, that's worth a lot. All right, so I'm not a very smart person, and I think people buy stuff because they either got burnt or they just wanted it, right?
Yeah.
I bought a 64-degree wedge after playing a round of golf where I would never need a 64-degree wedge, but it turns out like all of the tee shots at this particular course required one, right? So that was just a pain buy. After and so I assume there's some of those with the sales process with Cingo, right? Like I just got my butt kicked.
Sure.
And now,
yeah, the reactive phone call to me is it's disheartening for me in some ways, but I'm also glad that we get the call and that we can help out, and we'll help out as much as we can. It's a good reminder, and that client, that person who becomes a client, is generally a referenceable one.
Yeah. Because
they say, man, I wish I would have taken this more seriously. To those folks who are kind of on the fence about it. Truthfully, I think a lot of folks now are much more aware of this, and so even if their accounts aren't being locked up or they don't have a data breach, people are a little bit more proactive now and just at least exploring the conversation and trying to learn. I actually had a conversation with someone in Dallas this morning who's doing mortgage loans. They left Bank of America, started their own business, 10 employees, making a couple $1 million a year. And I think from the conversation he had the idea to call me because Bank of America, I don't have to worry about this.
Yeah.
But now I'm on my own.
Yeah.
And I've got to pay for it. So how do I think about this? What do I do? And Cingo Solutions wants to be a partner to these businesses.
Yeah.
And you're a prospective client until you sign the contract. But as we converse and we talk and I learn about your business and you learn about me, there's a good chance the road will lead to a partnership.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, that's okay. At the end of the day, I want you and your customers to be safe and secure.
Sure.
One way or the other.
Yeah.
Well, and I think something that's important for us is we're not a one-size-fits-all company. There are a lot of people that it's not the right fit. And for us, what we try to do is find good MSPs that we can kind of put the work into. And it's funny because I think they're always wondering why we're doing it. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's if we're not being the worst thing I think we can do for clients or prospective clients is just say you're not right for us and then just leave them hanging, because this is a difficult industry to vet. How on earth do you go out and say this guy's good and this guy's bad when it's a technical sale like this?
Right.
And so I think that the third-party certification for us was really important. It's a deep audit that we have to deal with every year for the SOC 2, but it allows our clients to understand that we take our promises as seriously as possible, and that we're willing to pay a lot of money every year for another party to come in and make sure that we're telling the truth to our clients.
Yeah. So the sales process, it's a good one. Somebody either through direct marketing, word of mouth, they give you a call. From start to finish, what's the process like for the customer, the onboarding, in like a good scenario where it's like pretty clean cut and there's not complications?
Sure. I think start to finish, you're probably looking at a 45 to 60-day sales cycle. And it's going to be hosted over several different weeks, several different meetings. It's going to be on the phone. We'll do some demonstrations. I'll host a Zoom call and demonstrate the client center where we are showing our clients exactly what's happening in their networks and their systems. You'll see what's hitting the firewall. You'll see what's being allowed through. You can manage and see different levels of transparency regarding employee training and even something as simple as like a password complexity levels. So the client center is kind of the hallmark of what we've been building the last couple of years, and it's something that's really resonating in the market right now and getting people to take the next step and actually dig into it, but adopt cybersecurity and adopt the platform. But we need to learn about the business first. Scott just mentioned, like, we very rarely do we say we're not a good fit. We're going to make it a good fit, and we are nimble enough and we have the talent in-house to find a way to do that. So we love kind of those hairier, more complex projects.
Yeah.
And from an onboarding perspective, this is all software. So I'm happy to fly out and meet you and shake hands. I'll bring our client service manager, Brenley, who's fantastic as well. We'll all shake hands and kind of walk through what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. But we don't have to. It's, with technology today and our software suite, we can get stuff done usually within weeks, not months, not quarters. So that's refreshing, I think, for people to hear too. There's a lot of hesitancy, committing money, committing people inside your organization, and then hearing someone say, "Oh, great! All right, we got a 6-month project on our plate now." And we try to alleviate that as much as we can for our clients, because they usually don't have the expertise or let alone the people sometimes. If you're a 10-person shop, you can't pair off 2 people to focus on this. So we want to be an extension of their team and make that as easy as possible.
Well, and if there aren't any additional complications, we're usually able to onboard per desk. As far as like the interruption in day-to-day business, we can onboard someone's workstation in probably, I don't know, between 8 and 14 minutes. The software has internal training modules that help people understand really how to utilize it. So as far as disrupting your day-to-day, we've tried very hard and spent a lot of money trying to figure out how to make sure that small businesses, that time, that labor is incredibly expensive up front. And so we want to make sure that they're not spending time fiddling with our stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. So deal goes through, everything's good, onboarding's good. Even if you're not technical, right? You assume you have like a dashboard where you can check in and stuff. If there is an attack or there's some sort of barrage, do they get notified through kind of their platform, or do you guys ping them? Are there various levels of danger?
Yes, certainly. Okay. So you're absolutely correct. There is a dashboard. They can log in and see exactly what's going on, but they don't have to. The dashboard is designed for the leadership level to have an overview of the health of the network, and we make that as simple and clear as possible. We have analysts in St. George in our building who are eyes on glass, making sure that the network is running smoothly, things are safe and healthy, and there's a certain level of escalations that our team goes through before reaching out to the end client. But we absolutely will reach out to them if we need to. 24/7. We're also available 24/7.
Yeah.
So our team holds. They're carrying literally red-colored cell phones that will ring in the middle of the night if there's a problem, and they're paid pretty well to answer those phones and get into the office if they need to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it goes through a series. If they call one of the bat phones, that it ends up at the chief compliance officer's phone, and he doesn't want to get woken up in the middle of the night. So we luckily, knock on wood, in all the years we've been doing this, we haven't had a breach of anyone inside of our security coverage. But it's not to say that it couldn't happen. So we have ongoing training constantly about how to deal with those specific scenarios and how to mitigate that. We also keep good legal counsel on staff, or in affiliation, I guess, a better way to say it. who can help deal with ransomware issues, help to negotiate terms, help to get that back down. Now, again, we've never had to use it, thank goodness. But at the end of the day, what we try to do is look at it as a full scale environment, and then help the small business kind of navigate that. We also have insurance partners, kind of channel partners that really understand cyber liability insurance, so that the coverage is correct, that they're not getting they're not getting covered for a tiny bit, and then when it comes time to actually pay out that claim, that they're denying the claim because it doesn't fall under the specific term that it would have to be under. But we try to make sure that the guesswork is out of it. The client just gets to do what they do best, which is make money in their field of expertise, and we handle the rest.
Great.
I think those are important points that listeners should take note of. It's important that your provider, whoever you partner with for your data security, be thinking about the whole picture and being prepared for the worst case scenario. Because you'll get a bunch of phone calls from reps at Proofpoint or Entrada or wherever, and they want to cover like one piece of the pie. Well, we'll do your email security. And a very simple question to ask is, okay, well, what about my cell phone? What about the
endpoint
browser?
Yeah.
What about the network? What about servers? And oh, by the way, if there is a problem, which oftentimes it's really a matter of when, not if.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to help me out? And we have the tools in place to handle that worst case scenario. almost 50% of attacks today are directed at the small business because they're the low hanging fruit.
Sure.
So
Well, and there's an interesting statistic. I forget who the one. I'll have to get you the context for it. I forget who the partner is or the group is that puts out this survey once every year. But they did a survey, and out of the 100% of people they surveyed that had actually had a ransomware attack, 97% of the executives felt confident to sure that their infrastructure would handle and be able to not put a target on their back. And I think the goal here is you're not going to outrun it. There's no way to outrun it. But it's kind of the concept of, if you're trying to run away from a bear, you don't have to be faster than the bear, you're just faster than the guy next to you. And unfortunately, that's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
If you're prepared, then you're not going to get hit. If you're an easy target, then you're going to get hit. If you make it hard on them where they have to grind, why keep doing it if there's a simple target right next door to you?
Yeah. That makes sense. And the poor people that have the bat phones, they always go off at the wrong time.
Yes, they do.
I'm in Europe on vacation, and the bat
That's
phone
right.
hasn't gone off for 10 years, and then it goes off.
That's right.
All right, cool. Well, one kind of final question, we'll wrap it up. It's the meat and potatoes question. So, and this is a question of how you kind of structure your days, if you want to say your life. What are some tools that you use, technical, non-technical, some methodologies that you follow that help you kind of keep the trains running on time?
Oh, that's a tough question. We are also part of a private equity group with I have 4 other partners there that we run about 11 other companies through. We utilize a series of different communication software suites. I forget what the main one is, the project management software that we use. This would be a good plug for them, but we utilize that in almost every day. God, I can't remember what the name of this thing is. My IT guy's going to kill me, but we utilize that. We have different builds that are going on constantly with it, and even within Cingo, we have different focuses that are happening and different assignments. That's really important. Accountability, I think, is the number one thing. You don't burn cash if people are accountable. If you're a startup and you're young, the most dangerous thing is there's a fuse burning, and it's cash. And if you can't outperform the cash and get sales and get things moving and improve your cash flow, that's your life cycle. And that fuse will extend if you can actually improve cash flow, and it diminishes if not. And the only way that you can do that is how many hours of the day do you have to burn to bring in cash flow.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the right tools in place, Clubhouse is what we use.
Okay.
But if you don't have the right tools in place and people aren't synchronized, it's difficult. Also, the executive leadership, it's really tough, especially when you're starting out. You want the CVs, you want people to have these deep, to look good on paper, and that's great, and you need that. But if they're not if you guys aren't equally yoked and they aren't hammering all day every day like you, it doesn't. They could be MIT grads. You're still going to go broke.
Yep, that's good advice. Same question, kind of meat and potatoes.
I do a lot of industry reading, so to stay sharp on the latest and greatest in cyber crime, cyber technology, and cybersecurity solutions. I think that's an important lesson I took away from my days at some other roles, at Goldman Sachs and at Adipar. I saw that the most successful leaders in our organization read a lot, and they were very well versed on a lot of different fronts. So I try to read, and I try to block off my calendar. I try to schedule and block every part of my day, from wake up to go to bed. You look at my calendar today, you're going to see a bedtime chunk for my kids. You're going to see my bedtime chunk. You're going to see my industry reading. You're going to see my walk around the block, my workout, my push-ups, whatever. It literally says push-ups on my calendar.
I've seen it. I didn't believe him either.
But the point is when you have that structure, I think it helps you get stuff done and get stuff done efficiently. And that I'm not original to that thinking. In fact, it's kind of new for me in the last couple of years after I read Cal Newsom's book called Deep Work. That was a very influential book for me. And then, of course, you can kind of spin that into habits, and Charles Duhigg writes about the power of habit. And so those are just two books you can pick up today if you're an entrepreneur, which I am not, by the way. I should mention, I am not an entrepreneur. I did not start Cingo, but I am honored and thrilled to be a part of the team in building it and getting Cingo to the next level.
Yeah.
But those are two ways to think about your day and build structure to every single day that turns into structure across your weeks, your months, your quarters, and all of a sudden your years, and then you can just be knocking stuff out.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Scott, and thank you so much, Brad. Appreciate you guys taking the time, and you guys are at an interesting point in time to have, the company that you guys do, Single Solutions, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that are glad you're doing what you're doing. So thank you so much for your support.
Well, thanks for having us, Garrett, and equally for you guys. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I think you're doing a fantastic job helping young entrepreneurs in this area understand a lot of the pitfalls of what they're facing, and you guys do a really great job with it, and it's an important work. So thanks for having us.
You bet.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.